Welcome back to the Conscious Corner. The truth is always so obvious, only you can't see it. Have you ever had those moments in your life when someone says something to you, gives you advice, and you immediately have this defensive reaction to that? For example, at one point, this was last year, someone said to me, he said, "Nancy, I think you need to be easier on yourself. You need to go travel, you need to do all these things." And he said, "You're still young, you should put less pressure on yourself." And at that point, I immediately became defensive. I said, "Oh no, that can't be possible. It's impossible, I have too many responsibilities, yada yada yada." And I said to him, "You don't understand what I'm going through. You don't understand what I'm suffering from." Looking back at that reaction that I had to what he said, I can only now laugh about it, because as much as I hate to admit, he was right. I was pushing myself too hard. I was punishing myself. I was not living life to the fullest. And only now can I see in what ways I am doing that on a daily basis. It's so obvious to others, because when we are not living our own truth, when we are on a false path, a path that we think we should be on, regardless of how it misaligns with what we really want, it's so blatantly obvious. It manifests in so many ugly, unflattering, repulsive, miserable ways. And it's always extremely obvious to whoever is looking in. But we need to get to that point where we are ready and able to confront that, because it's like taking the red pill. The moment you take the red pill, you begin to expand your awareness. It's like when you're meditating, when all of a sudden you can see yourself from afar, you can watch and observe your thoughts and how you're operating in the world. It's only when that happens you can truly come to terms with the damage that you have done. So what do I mean by damage? And we've spoken about this as well in my previous video on how to overcome the fear of being seen. Because if for so many years of your life you have had this fear, it had led you to not shun any opportunity you get to be photographed, or any opportunity you get to be in front of an audience, then that takes a toll. That takes a toll on you. Because recently I've managed to slowly build up the confidence to see myself on screen, to film myself like I am doing now, to show my face to the world instead of hiding behind the camera and filming other people talking about their problems. Every time I see footage of myself, I see every slither of mistreatment. I see every bit of sadness. I see everything. I remember recently celebrating my birthday. I was completely unaware. My work colleagues showed up with a birthday cake out of nowhere. It was after a very grueling day of shooting on a photo shoot. I was very tired, very much wasn't expecting to be surprised, and someone took a video of me being given this big cake with all the candles on it. And I remember watching myself in that video, seeing everything, all the emotions. It's so blatantly obvious when you actually watch. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but when someone is filming you unexpectedly, observing you, whether it's like a sneaky friend who filmed a video of you without you realizing, it's different from something that you are aware of. Because when someone's filming you and you're aware of the fact that they're filming you, you present yourself differently. But whenever someone's filming you without you knowing, that's when the guard comes down. That's when everything comes up. So I was rewatching this video over and over again. In the past, I would be so scared to confront whether it's because of the way I look, the way I sound, silly things like that you are sensitive to if you have this fear of being seen, which I did. I was watching this video clip over and over again, this super low res video clip that someone sent me on WhatsApp, and oh my God, I thought to myself, it was all there. All the discomfort, the awkwardness, and being, this very sensitive, intuitive person that I am, which I'm slowly coming to terms with as well, whether that's reading other people or reading myself. For the first time, I was reading myself from an outside perspective. And in that moment, I saw all of the years of making myself small, of hiding just my body language. Our body language is so powerful. You can signal to the rest of the world how you feel through the way you stand, the way, if you're hunched over, if you're making yourself small. Someone's body language says so much about them. I was finally observing myself from an outside perspective, and it shocked me. All the emotions, whether it's feeling like I didn't deserve that cake or feeling like I was not prepared for the attention that I was receiving from other people, it was all written all over my face. And even the bad night's sleep that I had, chronic fatigue, the dark circles under my eyes, the way I was making myself smaller ever so slightly, just so blatantly obvious. And then that led me down a path of thinking, in what other areas of my life have I given off that vibe? Have I given off that deficiency in front of others, therefore makes it so obvious to the rest of the world, this is how I want to be treated? When we think about how we make up our minds as to how we should treat someone, it's all in their own understanding of themselves, of who they are. If someone is so anxious all the time, if someone is always making themselves small, even if you are the kindest, most loving person in the world, feel awkward around that person because everything you say, everything you do directed towards them, they receive it in this way. And it becomes difficult for someone like that to receive love, which is what I took away from that observation. When I rewatched that video clip over and over again, I suddenly knew why I was having so much trouble experiencing love, receiving love, and letting myself shine, letting myself be seen, which is something that, you would expect from someone who had to deal with a lot of trauma around feeling like you don't belong and all that jazz. So it was super obvious to that person a year ago who said to me, he said, you need to go out there and experience life. Deep down I knew he was right, but I was still unwilling to let go. Part of it is this fear. Again, going back to fear, fear is a very common denominator amongst so many of these topics that I'm presenting to you, because fear made it so that I didn't want to look at myself. Because when you finally do, when you are finally courageous enough, when you have reached a point where you decide that you no longer want to hide, that you can confront who you are, that you can see for the first time who you are, what you look like, and etc., that's when it becomes impossible to deny that. That's when it becomes impossible to run away or to do anything that is against your best interest, because you can finally see the suffering, the sadness. And you wouldn't want that as a kind-hearted person, as someone who only wants the best for other people. You wouldn't want that for anyone else. So why are you doing it to yourself? So that's what I have learned after reaching that point. And before that, obviously, I was, it didn't just happen out of nowhere. I was definitely on a journey already. I was preparing myself for these big moments to happen where I'm saying, you know what, this is it. I am not going to hide, because it's costing me. It's costing me everything. It's costing me my life. It is costing me my youth. That was only possible because I decided to face myself. And how many of you out there are putting that off? How many of you are not willing to face yourself because you are actually afraid of uncovering the amount of damage that you have done? Whether you're addicted to something, whether you're an alcoholic or a drug addict, anybody who is willingly, voluntarily harming yourself, sometimes it's because we're unwilling to confront, to uncover the extent of the damage which we have done to ourselves. And that is exactly what is happening in nature, in the environment. We are in denial of the state that the environment is in, are in denial constantly. I recently came across this beautiful woman who explained to me the whole idea of deep ecology. It's all about seeing nature as an extension of ourselves, as this extension of our own being. And she mentioned that part of what it means to practice deep ecology is to almost allow yourself to go into the grief of the natural world, to the extent that we have demolished the Amazon forest, to the extent that we have poisoned rivers and oceans and absolutely destroyed the habitat for so many animals, the pain, the suffering, all the bushfires, everything, to go into the grief of that. And I couldn't help but think, after she said that to me, that it is also about going into the grief of what you have done to yourself. Another quote from someone as well along that same topic: we don't want to shop and consume. We actually want to go into grief and cry. I remember hearing that for the first time and having this emotional reaction, just this immediate reaction to that line, because of how true it is that, yeah, we don't want to consume. We don't want to mindlessly numb ourselves by continuing to obey the rules of this hyper-consumerist capitalist society. So many of us will benefit from simply seeing ourselves in the mirror. We can all benefit from confronting our own grief. And of course it manifests in different ways, but if you have a fear of being seen, then you need to go into that contrary to what society wants you to do. It wants you to forget, it wants you to party it up, it wants you to drink, it wants you to take drugs that give you more confidence. All those celebrities, all those people who you hear about their story, it's always that they felt so deeply inadequate, they had to numb themselves. Instead of that, what you need to do is go into the grief of your own suffering and removing that stickiness between the ego of your mind, thinking that your body, like nature, is meant to be a servant to you, this anthropocentric way of thinking about the world, of thinking about you as an organic existence. By removing that ego-led way of thinking, you are able to confront your own organic existence. That's when you begin to notice all the lines on your face that is shouting at you to stop killing yourself, to stop harming yourself, just as we need to stop harming the natural world by living mindlessly. And it all comes hand in hand. The moment you're able to come from an objective point of view, you can have more compassion, which is the most important part, I think. First of all, you need to have the objectivity, and then you need to have the compassion for yourself. And that is how you can discover the truth. Thank you, and I wish you a beautiful day.